Hello David, thank you for sending me through those two parts for me to model for you. The first one, the stacking plug spindle, is pretty easy to do, and I'll show you how to do that, the two ways that can easily be done within a separate video. I wanted to concentrate today on the 1 kV stacking plug outer because that's quite an interesting part to make, and it shows quite a lot of good features of the tri-ball and how IronCAD works. So the first thing I need to do is I'm going to use the catalogue browser, which is pretty much unique to IronCAD. You can then add parts into that, you can add holes, you can add text, you can all store that in the catalogue browser and bring out. So if you use a lot of stuff or families of parts, then it's quite easy to use the catalogue browser. It's quite a nice feature. So what I'll do is I'll bring in a block first and I'll resize that block, and I know that it's going to be 36.5, 10 by 2, and I think it's 13.6. And let's just put the background image on this because it makes it look quite nice. And there you can see I have the block. What I'm going to do is shape the sides, put a chamfer on the front, chamfer on the back, just to make it look like the top part of that plug. So I select the two edges I want to work with first, click chamfer, take the first one, and that's 9mm, and take the second one, and this time we're going to do distance angle. I'm going to do 9mm on that one, and an angle of 10 degrees I believe it is. That's obviously the wrong way around. Toggle the values, say done. Take that edge there, I want to chamfer that edge and that edge. This time I'm going to use distance. I'm going to go, turn the toggle off, I'm going to go 1.25 and 9mm. That looks correct. Let's select that part, and there you can see we've got the top shape already cut out. What I'll do now is I'll add the bottom part in. So I want to go to my catalogue, drag out the catalogue from the catalogue, the cylinder, drop it onto that point there. We'll make it 10.4, same size as the bottom. Rotate it round. If I drag that handle, pull handle on the IntelliShape and go, I can then use it to snap to geometry, and the same on the front, so that I get it to match that block correctly. As you can see, obviously I should have done that in another way around. I should have put that on first, but that's not a problem with IronCAD because it's pretty unique to IronCAD. Is that what we have the ability is we can say, okay, let's go to the scene browser, let's look at the tree and say, let's move that cylinder, which I put in last, let's just put it up before we did the chamfering, and there you go, we've got our part in place. Now we need to put the ridges for the handles. I go to another catalogue which I've put in shapes, and in there I've got something called Torus. So I'm going to drop that down there. This is a warning comes up saying that the part I'm trying to add is smaller than the part that it normally is. Do you want me to rescale it? And I'm saying yes, otherwise we end up with a big screen full of geometry which you don't need, and you've got to change down. And I know that I need to make that by 11.4, and it's 2mm diameter. And as you can see, it's obviously in the wrong place. So if I select it again, if I then turn the tri-ball on, which is a unique feature within IronCAD because it's the ability to move parts of the geometry, faces, solids, holes around and put them into the position and orientation that you want. So if I then click on that handle there, that's saying I'm going to move it in that axis in some arbitrary distance. I need to specify that distance, so I just grab the handle with the left mouse key, move it across, and say I'm going to move it 5. But it also has the ability as well, if I right mouse click and drag it, it gives me the ability to move it, copy it, link, or create a linear pattern. I'm going to do a linear pattern. I'm going to say 6, and that's going to be 5, and now I've got the part already with the grab handles already in there, which is quite nice. If I then select the part, I can shell this out, which will be so I can then specify a thickness of 1 mil, and I want that face and that face to be open. If I use the spectacles, I look at that, you can see what it's going to look like. That looks pretty good. Then accept that part, and there we can see that we've got the basic shape and the hollow cut out already. What I'd like to do is now select that edge, and we'll add a blend on there, and this what we'll do is I'll blend that edge, and I shall also I'll make that yeah, 9mm. That looks alright. No, 5 I think is what we had on there before. And I'm going to select that edge and that edge and that edge and that edge, and if I select those 4 edges, I can make them 1mm, and then I can fillet that part. So as you can see, that is looking pretty good. If I look round inside there, if you look at that top corner there, you can see that that's not quite right. Let's just scroll that out. I think it's my mouse trying to tell me it thinks it knows what it's doing, and it's trying to grow things in the wrong position, which isn't what I want. If I select the part, I can go to tools, I can then do a section utility, choose the orientation plane that I want, pick the point I want that section to go through, and then just say OK. And the reason I did that was to show you, but basically I've got that wrong again. I should have really done the shell after I've done the blends. So if I go back to the blend and say, or the shell, and say okay, I should really show that later on. This is unique to IronCAD, where we can drag and drop, move things forward and backwards in the history tree, which then enables us to correct some of these mistakes. And you can see then I've got a proper thickness all the way across around the top there. So I turn the section tool off, and what I need to do now is just add the front on there. And so if I go back to my starter, select cylinder, I just drop that onto the center of that point there. It's telling me it's going to make it small, and this is 7.9, and the length is 20.5, and there we've got our part already on the front added. We just need to add in a whole cylinder, and we need to make that 6.7. And if I grab the bottom part and the shift key, I can then select that face and say I want it to go to there, and you can see we've already created that part quite quickly. Okay, what I want to do is just rotate it round to that point there, drag and drop a cylinder on there. I know that's got to be 6 diameter and by 1, and that puts that extra piece in the middle there, which you had on your model that you sent me. And I would like to also fillet that face there, because obviously there's some sharp bends there, so we don't really want that. So I'm just going to fillet that or blend that edges, and I'm going to make it 0.2, and that looks like it's going to be okay. So I say okay, and I've got that there. Now all I need to do now is put my hole through the center, and I know that's going to be 4.2, and I'm done. And there you see we have the model created for us. So what you also had on there was some ability to put some embossed text. So if I go to annotation, select the text, select the face, it produces a very large text, obviously because we're working on a small model. I'll change that to 6 height and 0.2, because I think that's what you had on your documentation. We'll have a round end. You can change how much it blends into that round end as well. It's entirely up to you. And we put it on the back, and I say finish, and there it puts the text on the geometry. What I can do now is type in something for me to look at, a name like your company name or something like Cliff, and once again you can see that it's in the wrong orientation. This is where the tribal is so great, because you can then select the axes and say I want to rotate that through 90 degrees. Turn the tribal off and then grab the grab handle to stretch it out so the text can fit in there neatly, and there you can see we have the embossed text on the part. Now if I was to right click on the part and then do Smart Paint, I can actually change the colour of this. I can put transparency on, or etc. But what you can do is you can build up a catalogue of textures which you commonly use, as well as textures as well if you want to, and you can then add them into the part. So if I take a red anodized, if I take that, drop it on the text and drop it on the part, there you can see I've got a nice red part with the name. Now obviously that's pretty good. What I would like to do now is, if I then say okay, what happens if I want to make this into assembly? So I've actually got one called a demo part. I can actually add anything to any catalogue at any time from the scene by just left clicking on the part, dragging it to the scene, and it adds it in. I haven't named this part, so it can come in as part 1 obviously, or I can, if I wanted to, I can just go ahead and take it out of that scene. I've already made the stacking plug, as you can see. I've got it there, and obviously it's in the wrong orientation, so I can actually rotate that in the correct orientation by selecting the axis using the tribal again, just dragging it around to 90 degrees. And what I want to do is I want to move the tribal to the center of there, because it's going to meet or mate inside there. So I unlock the tribal, I go to center point, pick that point there, lock the tribal again, and then do the same thing again, center point, rotate it round, zoom in so I can see what I'm doing, and choose that point there, and there it adds the part in the right orientation. So if I then zoom out and then turn on the section tool, you can see that it's aligned it correctly. Now you can put insertion points on the model with the orientation, so that actually if you're doing a lot of these, you can just set that so that is the insertion point when you create your part, and that's for the plug as well, and you just drop it in and it will automatically add it in the right orientation in the right place. So that saves a bit of time as well. So let me turn the section off, and well, I've pretty much made that. But what I could do is let's select the whole assembly and right click on that. We'll assemble it up into an assembly, and we'll just call this Cliff Assembly, and I'll save it to my desktop. I'm just going to call that Cliff. So I've got an assembly called Cliff, and I've saved it to desktop in a scene called Cliff, and they're all together. I can now, if I wanted to, I can create a new drawing from that, and you can specify the drawing sizes as templates. You can have your own templates, etc. I'm just going to show you that basically it is associative. I know that you're aware of that, but other people who you show the demo to might not be. So just quickly say that if I select that part, say OK, drop it down, and there you can see it adds the views in what I selected. Let's just grow this one to 4. Oh, sorry, the wrong way around. Scale. There we go. And if I wanted to, I can then render that picture. So if I then go to the annotation and just choose horizontal, if I zoom in on here, if I go from there to there, and if I go from there to there. Now if I zoom back out, if I now then go back to my original part and select that end there, and if I grow the length and make that 30.5, grow by 10 millimeters. If I then go back to the drawing, it will then come back, highlight and say that this drawing has changed. Do you want to update it? It gives me the options of what I want to do. I say yes, and you can see that it's growing it by 10 millimeters. Obviously I really don't want to do that, so what I shall do is select that part again and change it back to the correct size, which is 20.5. We don't just stop there, we got some other add-ins and features that we can put on this part. We can, if we save it, if we can go to the add-ins, and we have a link to Keyshot. Now I know Keyshot is not something you asked about, but I notice on your website you have lots of photos of your components, whereas within Keyshot you can actually make a nice rendered image, save that and put it onto your brochure, catalogues and website. So if I say I want to render this within Keyshot, it will bring up the Keyshot rendering package, and the licensing works from the Iron CAD licensing package. I choose a background color. I'm going to have white. You can have images if you so wish. Change the size and drop it to there. Let's just move it to something quite nice. And if I rotate that round, I've got some materials opened up on Chrome. And what I'll do is I'll drag that and drop it onto that part there. So I've got a chrome part, I've got some plastic. If I go down to some hard plastic and I'll go shiny, I've got a nice red shiny plastic to put on the outside for warning because it's 1 kV. And then I can just rotate this round, and there you can see, if I put it in like that, then you've got your text already lined up there. And then I can click on render when I've got it in the orientation, the size and the lighting correct. Click on render, choose a preset. So if you're going to put it on a website, you want a small one like 640 by 14. If you put it in a brochure, you want quite a high resolution, click it on that one. Just click on render. And there it will render the image for you to save and then to use for your brochures and website. I hope this was useful, and if so, you have any questions, just do come back to me and I'll be able to answer them straight away for you. And thank you for listening.